Well, good morning to you. I'm Jeff Coleman.
And I'm Debra Pinkerton. Welcome to Morning Light.
Well, as King Charles and President Donald Trump meet in Washington, is Great Britain a glimpse of America's future? New data reveals the nation rapidly losing its Christian identity, raising questions about where the West is headed. We'll turn to our panel after a special guest from London this morning.
And here's a preview of what's coming up later in the show. Human Life Services offers practical support to women and families experiencing an unplanned pregnancy. The executive director shares how this nonprofit gives a holistic and compassionate approach to clients to help them make informed decisions. Plus, you'll hear from a woman who's experienced an abortion but found healing through Human Life Services.
But first, the royal visit to the United States during his coronation as monarch and supreme governor of the Church of England. King Charles III has publicly affirmed his allegiance to Jesus, vowing to serve in his name and uphold the Christian faith. Yet new data shows the nation he leads is drifting sharply away from that foundation. Nearly 1 in 3 Britons raised Christian have now left their faith. Today, less than half of the UK identifies as Christian, and the numbers dramatically shift lower when you look at who's practicing Christianity.
Well, and across Britain, the church's influence on culture has largely faded too. Today, nearly 9 in 10 Britons support abortion rights, and more than 3/4 back legalizing assisted dying. These are positions that go against traditional Christian teaching. It shows a society that is increasingly shaped by secular values.
Now, of course, neither King Charles nor President Trump are known for professing a deep Christian faith. Both men support a religious freedom that has some raising a broader question. Is Britain a preview of America's future? With declining church attendance, rising secularism, and shifting moral values, the UK's trajectory offers a cautionary snapshot of what can happen when faith loses its influence on individuals and public life. To get a frontline perspective, we go to Pastor Les Wheeldon from Epsom Christian Fellowship. He joins us from his home in London, England. I'm sorry you missed the plane across the pond yesterday with the King and the Queen, but
yes,
we're glad you're with us this morning. Give us a sense of this juxtaposition between when we watch a coronation, when we watch the funeral of the Queen, or these lavish state occasions, and there's all of this language, the pageantry in churches, hymns that are familiar to us, beautiful passages from the Old and New Testament, and then swearing allegiance to Jesus, not just in the broad sense, but very specifically. What are we looking at here?
Well, of course, there's always a difference between public profession and private beliefs, and it's always hard to judge what they are because we are a Christian country, and many people would say that. In fact, there's a rising political movement that is saying we are a Christian country and need to return to Christian values. But that's got a political edge to it. I would say that it is true that Christianity has declined since the war. There was a great move back to God in the 70s. I think that was worldwide, with the charismatic movement and everything. Churches were being filled again. But since then, the tide has gone out and numbers have declined. And yet, today, there is data. I'm just reading here that there's a report that monthly church attendance has risen from 8 to 10% in Britain in the last 6 years. And that's an increase of 2 million people. And most significant, the growth is among young people, aged 18 to 24, and specifically young men. And if we look at their church attendance, it rose from 4% to 21%.
Well, it's fascinating.
So
Unless I think we're seeing some of those trends here, too. But you mentioned something interesting, that there's this kind of political Christian movement. You know, here in America, we've had this move to say Merry Christmas, to be more literal about kind of Christian, almost a bumper sticker approach to Christianity. We identify this way, but it's not always reflected in the way our leaders, for example, act, or how we treat each other as neighbors. What do you think the difference is between that political movement and then what you're describing as this curiosity and surge of young men, especially, to Christian faith?
Yes, well, I think this is a vital distinction because institutional Christianity itself has not always meant a personal commitment. And I don't think a political commitment is what Jesus Christ was the forefront of his teaching. The forefront of his teaching was personal surrender to him and faith in him, following him and his teaching. And our late Queen, she had a profound experience of the Lord. You probably know that in 1956, Billy Graham came to London, and we thank God for that visit. It was a very important visit. And the Queen could not attend his meetings because of protocol and security. So she requested to meet him personally. And from that time, it's clear her faith was really shining in her heart, and she gave testimony. And for her generation to speak so personally of her faith is remarkable. She had a deep personal commitment to Jesus Christ. But I'm not sure all the monarchs in the past have had that personal commitment. And Charles himself has not been so personal. He's been more institutional in his comments. But
So
I believe there's a danger, yes.
So there's a respectability almost associated with being identified with Christianity. But what you're talking about is this heart transformation, this surrender. That's language that's very foreign, I think, to anybody, even in the secular context. Surrendering sounds negative. How do you share then the gospel today, knowing that you don't have the institutional language of Christianity and faith always to rely on, especially for young people?
Well, the answer to that is I think that the church's secret weapon, shouldn't be secret, is the person of Christ. He is so amazing. His identity, his authority, his power, his love, his compassion. He is such a wonderful person. And when we preach the person of Christ, it transcends generations, it transcends culture. There is something so attractive about Jesus Christ. I think of religion as being the clothing of a faith. And when I speak to you, I'm not looking at your clothing, I'm looking at your eyes, I'm looking at your face. And a lot of people go to church and stick with the clothing, the outward form of Christianity. But the church is to preach the person of Christ and to lift him up, and also his work on the cross. These things, when we do that, then people are drawn. It really does transcend all ages. And,
Les, we have about 20 seconds left here. Are you hopeful? I mean, are you hopeful looking at our country and your country that the gospel could once again take root in England?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm so hopeful. I believe in the power of the gospel, and I see churches growing. And I remember another quote from Billy Graham. Somebody said, "You've turned the clock back 100 years." And he said, "That's a pity. I wanted to turn it back 2,000 years." Well, and I'd love to see.
That'll be our final word today. And what an encouragement you are to us here in the United States. And I hope we can continue this friendship and conversation here in Morning Light. Les, we'll see you again.
Thanks so much. God bless.
Well, we now turn to our Morning Light panel for some insight. Our good friend John Wetzel, and back again, the very tall pastor John Hayward, who has an affinity for all things England too, which is why you're on the panel. So I do want to ask you, though, he said something very interesting, and I've heard you talk about it before, that there's this difference between politicians and kind of this national Christian faith. We are a Christian country, almost generically, and then this idea of a personal faith and relationship. Les explained it very clearly. How do you see that, though, in a culture that's increasingly, yes, we're Christian, but much less secular in personal practice and piety?
Yeah, well, I think depending on where you are, who you're talking to, they might disagree with that. Yes, we're Christian, but yeah, I think it can sort of lend itself to the bad stereotype of like a hedge fund baby, right? Where like people actually begin to value the fruits of something more than the hard work, the dedication, the character that led to it. So we're certainly very still blessed in America to have a heritage of people embracing Christian values. But embracing Christian values and embracing Jesus Christ as the Savior of sinners and yourself as one of those sinners is a world of difference between Christian values and valuing, treasuring Jesus. Yeah.
So to the other John here, how have you seen this, both in your own personal transformation, going from a young man going to church on Sunday evenings, the midday services, at VBS and all of that, and having this step away for a few years and then going back deeply and reconnecting yourself, finding the language of faith again. How do you relate to seeing this drift in England but also in both countries, our country and theirs, this return to a formal Christian faith?
Yeah, I think God for the last 10 years, really, in this country, where the line of delineation is becoming very clear. I mean, you can just tap the language of our Lord. Give to Caesar that which is Caesar, right? So I think the assumption that government is the same as governance of Christians, walking the faith, it's really never been that. The Venn diagram has been a lot more overlapping in the past where we could easily be confused, but there should be no confusion. Christians are asked, demanded to behave in a manner that Christ lays forth for us. And oftentimes that overlaps with good government, but certainly not 100%.
So, John, as a pastor, do you like seeing more politicians? There seem to be more public prayers, for example, in political life. There are more people who open rallies with a prayer and the pledge, and many people see that, hey, this is a good thing because this is a public statement of who we are. Is that a good trend? Does it help the cause of the gospel?
I think it depends. I hope that was helpful for a soundbite.
Yeah.
Right? It depends, right? As far as the Lord does not need a PR campaign. The Church of Jesus Christ is doing just fine. King Jesus is having it all his way, and he's satisfied. But at the same time, so God doesn't need the help, but also as people are personally seeking to bring their sincere faith and just being public about how this is why I believe these values or things like that, I think that's fine. But the caution would be the Lord has very condemning language against people who would try to use his name for personal profit or advantage. And so I think people should make sure that they remember that blasphemy is a wicked thing with the name of our precious Lord and things like that. So I just think the Lord himself, it's not like this is the first era when people in power have been tempted to use Christian language for their own personal gain. And you can see, you can see that universally. It's not just like certain kinds of people end up using religion for profit and others don't. But
John, any thoughts on that? I mean, you've been as a secretary, cabinet level secretary, through a lot of speeches that began with very religious talk or prayers at the beginning. Some of them very sincere. Others, perhaps you know them personally, maybe not so much. How have you balanced all of that as a public person?
Yeah, well, I think our job as Christians is to be that Christian witness and to behave in a manner that Christ sets forth for us. And so I think it's very important that we discern the difference between talking and doing. And even in our evangelizing or bringing people to the church, we're supposed to do that from our behavior. Yeah. We're supposed to be an active witness. And so even the question of, are we a Christian country? It depends. Are we acting like a Christian country? Are we Christians? Is our witness strong enough to do that? We should not pay attention to government and expect government to create a Christian country. It's us. It's our job.
A lot of warnings in this conversation, in this panel. Thank you, gentlemen, very, very much. Well, coming up on Morning Light, options, care, support. That's what Human Life Services offers women facing an unplanned pregnancy. The executive director sits down with Debra up next. You're watching Morning Light right here on Lighthouse TV.
Welcome back. Human Life Services has offered life-affirming care since 1985. The faith-based outreach helps women facing an unplanned pregnancy make an informed decision. Joining us is the executive director, Leona Rega. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So remind us about Human Life Services.
Sure. So for over 40 years, we have been a pregnancy resource center serving all of York County and the surrounding communities. We are helping women and men through an unplanned pregnancy. We are often that stop and pause place when they're seeking information on how to have an abortion. We can actually flip that, and we can help them to seek life-affirming options such as adoption and parenting. And we also let them know that they don't have to do this alone. We will walk with them side by side every single step of the way.
So when someone does step into your place, what do you offer them? What are the different things?
All of the services are free. It starts with some counseling, just kind of understanding where are they, what has their journey been, what life circumstances are they facing. We then can provide them with pregnancy testing, with ultrasounds. We have parenting classes. We have classes for men and women to come together. We have classes for dads called Determined Dads. And we also have post-abortion healing classes for a woman who might have an abortion in her past.
And how do you share the gospel?
It's interweaved into everything that we do. Every client that comes through the door, we're asking them if we can pray with them. We also provide each client with a Bible. A lot of times there's some surprise there from them. They're not used to somebody caring so much about them in that kind of a way. And so we want to make sure that they know that the love and care and compassion that we show them comes from God and His holy word.
And what is the reaction you receive from the women?
I think many times surprise. They're very, very surprised, but also there's a lot of gratitude. They sometimes cry and thank us, just for praying for them. They can't recall the last time that somebody offered to pray for them in their circumstances or just in life in general. Some of them say, I had a Bible when I was little, but I don't know what happened to it. Thank you for giving me one. And so it's beautiful.
And how about from the men?
The men are the same. They react the same as the women. They're looking for someone to show care to them as well. And a lot of times we don't think about that. We don't think about what is his role as a father, as a dad. And so knowing that someone cares about their role in raising their child or being a part of decision making for their child has become very important.
And when they're there, at what point do you see it where you can see the light in their eyes, like they get this?
I think it takes time for some. It's a longer process of building that relationship and that trust with them. A lot of times it's going to be something that maybe is a trigger in a conversation with their peer mentor as they're talking through their situation and the abandonment that they have felt in their life, or maybe just some struggles that they've had financially or housing. When they realize that the Lord loves them long beyond the time that they'll spend with us, that's when you kind of see it click, that God is here for me, not just in this moment with Human Life Services, but for the rest of my life.
As you mentioned, all of your services are free, so you have different fundraisers. Let's talk about the golf outing.
Sure. So golf comes in June. This year it's held Tuesday, June 23rd. It's a fun way for us to raise much needed funds for the ministry, for the clients, but also to draw in our local businesses and churches as supporters. So they sponsor either teams or they'll do a non-golfing sponsorship, and we have an opportunity to educate them. We get to talk to them about the services that we provide to the clients. They get to hear a client testimony. So it's just a lot of fun.
And you're also involved with Give Local York.
We are. It is our largest giving fundraiser throughout the year. It provides much needed support because we do not receive federal or state grants, so we rely on the generosity of individuals like yourself, local businesses, and churches. They give in a 24-hour period. It kicks off this Thursday, April 30th at 7 p.m. It'll end at 7 p.m. on Friday, May 1st. All giving can be done online at our website of humanlifeservices.org, or you can go to the Give Local York page and you can look us up there and you can give in that way as well.
And it makes a huge difference for your ministry.
It does. all of the funds really directly support the client needs. So that's ensuring that all of those services that I mentioned before remain free. It also helps to cover overhead, which a lot of times in nonprofits, it's necessary to have your client services there to help schedule appointments, a 24-hour nurse hotline that we have, and then our in-house nurse who is the one that's meeting with the clients and giving them that medical care that they need. It's the material support that follows and the educational materials. It's all provided because of the generosity of donors.
Oh, that is wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing this with us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
To learn more about Human Life Services or to volunteer or participate in the Golf for Life, check out friendsofhls.org. Still to come on Morning Light, you'll hear from a woman who made the choice to abort her baby. Afterwards, she says she felt empty and guilty, but God restored her faith and life. And now she is helping other women facing that very same choice. You'll hear Sarah's story next. Sarah grew up in church but became a prodigal in high school. When she discovered she was pregnant, she decided to have an abortion. Sarah could not live with the guilt, and that's when God reached out to her. Sarah shares her story and how this decision is now helping other women facing the same decision.
That's one of my favorite passages is Luke 15. I really believe I'm like that lost sheep that Jesus left to just come all the way to the darkness and find me and pull me back out. I grew up in a Christian home. We went to church pretty much every Sunday. Then when I got to high school, I just kind of had this compulsion to get rid of the good girl image. So I would do, more drugs and party more. I felt completely empty inside. All of a sudden, I realized I'm pregnant. It was pretty much the worst thing that could possibly happen at this point in my life. I knew it was wrong, but I was just determined to carry this out. After the abortion, I instantly knew that I had done something horribly wrong. I couldn't face what I had done. I didn't want to live anymore. That's where God reached out to me at my lowest point. And He made it so that I knew it was Him. I heard His voice. All I could think of was, forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Over and over and over again. After the abortion, for 3 years, I would dread when that date was coming up. The 4th year, the next day, is when I found out I was pregnant. It's what a gift. Found out about Human Life Services through my church. I went through the Surrendering the Secret program through the class. I really identified with being a daughter of God. My name, Sarah, means princess, but I never had felt like that. It's like God's princess. I really wanted to help other people because of my experience. If I'm able to put all the things I went through to help somebody else, it makes it all worth it. So my first client as a client advocate was a baby saved. That's my favorite part of the notes that we take is to check the box that says baby saved. The way God redeemed my life, I have to do something with that. And what better way than to be right there with people who have been where I was. That's a huge part of what I love about HLS is seeing the women making the choice for life. They don't have to go through what I went through.
Welcome back. Well, years ago when I was sworn into the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, we took an oath by tradition on a Bible. Now, we chose the version, and then collectively we raised our right hand to the Constitution and of the United States and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. But if memory serves, the words "so help me God" were intentionally left out. Now, visiting chaplains were even instructed to avoid praying in Jesus' name to avoid offense. Now, when a British monarch is crowned, the words of faith are even more explicit. Again and again in the ceremony, the king proclaims allegiance to Jesus explicitly as King and Lord. And when the Bible is presented, a charge is given that this is the most valuable thing this world affords, the Bible. The point is, culture is often okay when we say religious things and sing a religious song now and then, and even take vows using words of faith. But when we start following the doctrines of that same faith, there's a discomfort, even hostility sometimes. In America, it's good to hear the words of faith in public. Even better, though, when leaders live by them with justice and mercy and humility. On this historic day, God save the King, and of course, our president as well. For Debra and the entire Morning Light team, I'm Jeff Coleman. Thanks for watching. Check on your neighbors, pray for our troops, and we'll look for you back here again tomorrow morning.